Welcome, board members and manager, to today's special board meeting, January 6, 2021. This is a public hearing and, I'm sorry, 2022.
Yeah.
Happy New Year, by the way, everybody, on that note. Um, this is a public hearing and special board meeting for the Board of Water Supply, BWS. The public hearing will be held first. Then we will proceed into our special meeting. My name is Brian Andaya. I'm the board chair. I'd like to take a moment to take a roll call of the board members who are present, joining by Webex. Please say aye when I call your name. Vice Chair Kapua Spro.
Aye.
Board Member Ray Soon. Board Member Ray Soon. Board Member Max Sword.
Here.
Board Member Naalehu Anthony.
Aye.
Board Member Jade Butai. And we have our newest board member, my friend, Dawn Shuzik.
Hi, thanks, Brian.
Hi, Dawn. And she's replacing Roger Babcock. And how about a big round of applause for Dawn? Welcome to Board of Water Supply.
Welcome, Don.
Thank you, everyone. Looking forward to working with you all.
So everyone who is calling in or video conferencing in, please take a moment at this time to mute your microphone and keep it muted while you're not speaking. If you have a question or would like to enter a motion or second a motion, make a comment or applaud something or whatever you want to do, please unmute your microphone and identify yourself for the record before continuing to speak. Also in the room with me are Manager Ernest Lau and Board Secretary Joy Cruz Ashu. Also joining us by Webex or telephone are Jeff Lau and Moana Yos, both from the City and County Corporation Council Department. Also joining on Webex to monitor public testimony is Mr. Steven Nordstrom, Information Specialist 2 from our Communications Office. I have a note here that member Ray Soon is now present. Ray?
Yes, hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. Sorry I'm late.
If you encounter, if anyone encounters technical issues during today's meeting, please use the Webex chat to send a direct message to our support team. Their names are listed in a message to all Webex participants. To open the chat window, please click or tap on the text bubble icon on the right side of the Webex toolbar. I also want to note that we are following all applicable state and local orders related to the COVID-19 emergency, and to follow public participation in a manner consistent with social distance practices. Board members are participating from remote locations via Webex, except myself. We were able to accept testimony in various ways: written, mail, and online. If you have not yet submitted any testimony and would like to do so, you can call in. Telephone testimony is being accepted during the meeting at 808-748-6040. Again, that number is 808-748-6040. If you do call in, please stay tuned and listen for directions once prompted. Unfortunately, we're not able to accept in-person testimony today due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the need for social distancing. Materials are available for this meeting. The board packet is available at boardofwatersupply.com/board meetings. Again, that website is www.boardofwatersupply, spelled out, .com/board meetings. And this is pursuant to HRS section 92-7.5. If you'd like to view the meeting via live streaming today, you may do so on our BWS website. And again, that website is www.boardofwatersupply, spelled out, .com/live. Again, boardofwatersupply.com/live. Video will appear on the screen. You may have to click the arrow on the video to start it, and you may have to unmute audio, as muted audio tends to be the default setting. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to now begin the public hearing. The purpose of today's public hearing is to consider the proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2021 to 2022 capital improvement, or CIP, budget for the Board of Water Supply. A notice of public hearing appeared in the December 28, 2021 Honolulu Star Advertiser. Before beginning, I'd like to state that this board is dedicated to providing safe, dependable, and affordable water to our customers. One of the best ways we can ensure that this occurs is to thoughtfully plan and fund a program of water facility improvement, as reflected in the proposed amendment of the CIP budget we are considering today. Before officially opening this public hearing, I'd like to ask Manager Ernest Lau to give a brief statement.
Thank you, Chair and board members. Good afternoon, Happy New Year. The purpose of this amendment is to amend the CIP program budget for the current fiscal year to add the capability to drill some new monitor wells in Palava Valley in response to the Red Hill situation, the Red Hill fuel contamination situation. And I'd like Raylan Nakabayashi to provide a brief presentation on the background for the project. Ray?
Thank you, Manager, and thank you, Board, for the time. Just confirming you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just get right into it. So as Board Chair mentioned, there was a notice of public hearing published in the newspaper on the 28th regarding this meeting today. The resolution that you adopted 9/23/2021 was for the fiscal year 21 to 22 CIP budget in a total appropriation of $179,976,000 for its our capital improvement program budget for this fiscal year. So the proposed amendment, this was the summary page of what was adopted in May 2021. As you see, bottom right total, $179,976,000 across the various types of categories, projects. So we have research and development, renewal and replacement, and capacity expansion. What we are proposing to do in the amendment of the budget is actually to increase the project category research and development by $2 million. And that's to install Palava Valley groundwater monitoring wells, potentially up to 2 of them. And in order to maintain the bottom line total of our budget, which is important to us to just as we move forward, we are removing funding of $2 million for project number 25, new service lateral installations at various locations. So while this will increase the research and development project category in the CIP that was previously adopted, it does reduce the project category for renewal and replacement by an equivalent amount. So the bottom line total of the proposed amendment that you're acting on remains the same. As manager mentioned, there is a need and an immediate need that has arisen to provide additional groundwater monitoring wells. there's a red arrow on your screen, kind of in the middle of the screen, site H. It's pointing at site H. That is the proposed location of at least one of the groundwater monitoring wells that this $2 million amendment will fund. And this is just I guess, a piece of the plans, because this project was actually planned and designed previously. It just wasn't executed. So we actually have all of the plans, specifications, environmental assessments, and other necessary approvals, such as access. It's probably not clear, but this is an access road that the well will be placed on. So we are reviewing and updating the plans and specifications and ensuring we've secured and we still have valid permits to move this forward. But we do believe at this time that it can be moved forward immediately in this fiscal year, pending the adoption of the budget amendment that would make the project category available for us. And if you have any questions about the amendment, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ray. So the importance of this location is that we will have a monitor well. The monitor well is not a well that pumps water into our drinking water system, but it's for research purposes. And the idea is that we be able to sample the groundwater in the underground aquifer at that location with the purpose in mind to actually test for petroleum contamination. And they're going to be there at that location to monitor for any migration underground petroleum contamination that may have originated at the Red Hill fuel facility and might be traveling across Halava Valley toward our drinking water source of Halava Shaft. So it is an important location for us. And because it'll be done by the Board of Water Supply, we will have the ability to have access at any time and access to the immediate test results once they come back from the laboratories, rather than waiting for potentially months to receive the results from others. So we're available for any questions.
I think member Anthony has a question or comment.
Yes.
Yeah, this is for Ernie. Just a quick question. I see that all those yellow dots are the Navy's test wells. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
So, with respect to the data that's coming off of those wells, how has the information flow for the testing in recent been to DOH and to you folks?
The test results are actually obtained by the Navy. Those are Navy wells, so they actually conduct the collection of the sample and having the sample tested at a laboratory. Then those test results are presented to the Department of Health and EPA. Well, our experience is that the delay in getting the results is anywhere between 3 to 6 months to actually get access to those results. And we believe, although we have requested that the results are not being provided to the regulators and to us on a timely basis.
Maybe just a little bit of follow-up. I think it was Erwin on the last call that said that, to be completely safe and using like Albuquerque, New Mexico as one of the models, that there's going to need to be dozens of these at some point that need to be dug to really get solid test results. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what some of the triggers might be to have to drill more of these, and or what are we looking at in the future budgetary process going into this next year to facilitate some of that?
Yeah, actually what we're looking at is this area, we think that, there is a need for way more of these monitor wells. And we believe that the majority should actually be installed by the Navy and paid for by the Navy. Although what we're doing here is because of this situation, we do not want to wait any longer. We need a kind of what we call a sentinel well location that is kind of between the Red Hill fuel facility and Halava Shaft. Although the dots look close together, we're going to probably go a little further away from the Navy's Red Hill monitor well number 12. But we need to be able to see if there is any migration that might be already occurring across the valley. The grid at Albuquerque, I think when the fuel spill from Kirtland Air Force Base, which has now reached the utilities drinking water source there in New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, they may have drilled maybe 100 wells of these monitor wells to try to locate and characterize the nature and extent and the movement of the contaminant plume that was created by the release of fuel from that fueling facility on the Air Force Base. Red Hill is so different. It's also much larger than the Kirtland Air Force Base situation. Those 20 tanks, 18 of which might be in use, are spread out. They're 100 feet in diameter. So each row is a row of 10. So 100 feet times 10 tanks is already like a 1,000 feet spread out over 1,000 feet, but they're not exactly right next to each other. So this thing, the Red Hill facility could be spread out maybe, I would guess, 1,500 to 2,000 feet along that ridge underground and 100 feet above the drinking water aquifer. So definitely the need for more of these monitor wells to create a grid of wells to be able to determine where the fuel might be moving underground in the aquifer. That's important. I think that it's very important, and this is what we've told the regulators, that the Department of Health and EPA should require them to do a much more thorough investigation of what is happening underground and where fuel contamination might be moving, and what's the nature of the contamination in the groundwater underneath. We still firmly believe that there is a flow gradient or flow direction across the Lava Valley, something that is still, the last time I spoke to the Navy back in October, was being disputed because they feel that the direction of flow is actually from the mountains toward the ocean, or along the ridge downward and not across the valley. But we believe that there's that real potential for cross-valley flow. Board Member Anthony, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ernie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have a question. This is Ray.
Go ahead. Ray.
Ernie, where else do we have monitoring wells in the area?
We have one on the, it's sort of the middle of the page near 405 Reservoir there, that is supporting the, you can see the water tank there. Ray, if you look at the kind of the middle on the bottom, above the Mauna Loa golf course, you see that round circle? That's our new Mauna Loa 405 #2 reservoir. So on that property, we did drill a monitor well to look at potential migration toward the east or south, which would take it toward the Mauna Loa Wells direction, monitor well direction. Mauna Loa Wells pumping station. So that's the only other monitor well we have. The others have been installed by the Navy. I believe they're at around 21 of these monitor wells right now, but most of them are actually on Navy property. What we want them to do is go and provide wells across Halava Valley and provide a better grid to be able to locate where the plume might be moving, or plumes. Are there any other questions?
Members, any further questions at this time?
Ernie, I don't suppose the Navy has offered to reimburse us for these 2 wells that we're forced to.
No, they haven't, but we're making sure that we keep track of all the costs that we are incurring related to this situation that has been created by the need to address the contamination and fuel releases from the Red Hill facility. So at some point in the future, we may ask the Navy to reimburse us for these costs. But what we don't want to do is wait until we go through difficult back and forth discussion and having the Navy to fund all these things. Right now, I think they're focused on trying to clean up their water system to get their dependents and personnel back into housing and other facilities. They're trying to clean up the contaminated Red Hill shaft, which is quite heavily contaminated with petroleum. There's discussions going on about aquifer recovery, but we haven't seen anything yet definitively being laid out by the regulators and the Navy.
All right. I have a question. So to do this, we're shifting money around in the CIP budget, $2 million, and basically we're, I guess, taking away or deferring project number 25. Can I ask what the plan is, and what the consequences is for this not having new service lateral installations?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Did somebody want to say something? Ray?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that the service lateral installations are handled by our field division, field operations division. So we will still install new service. This budget line item was to address potentially excess that above their capacity, but it has been determined that is not happening this year and will not happen this fiscal year. So they were not intending to spend the 2 million this year, but that is what this budget line is for. When there need be new service installations that field cannot do themselves.
I see.
So they've been able to handle, and what's I think slowing down the new service lateral installation is actually the permitting process too, because we can't start digging up the road until we have all the permits and approvals. But it looks like a field has been able to just manage and be able to keep up with that. So that these funds are actually available. It doesn't increase our bottom line for the total CIP. That remains the same. We're just shifting it around. We didn't have a project category for groundwater monitoring wells in the CIP budget. So the purpose of this effort is to actually create that category under research and development.
Okay.
And what we want to do is try to move quickly this fiscal year, rather than waiting to program these funds for next year's budget.
Oh yeah, what is the timeline for this groundwater monitoring well?
Like
If
okay.
you know everything goes.
Yeah,
That's
like
fine.
what Ray said, that we have landowner approval, which is probably the biggest challenge. And but we do have actually landowner approval and the permits, and we've gone through the Native Hawaiian organization consultation process for this location already, and worked with state historic preservation. So I think we can move pretty quickly. Hopefully within the next quarter, we'll be able to hire a contractor to start the drilling.
Okay. Any further questions?
I have a question, Brian.
Go ahead.
First off, I really just want to mahalo everyone who has worked so hard to get us to this point. So there are so many folks, but Ernie, Erwin, Kathleen, Ray, everyone, mahalo. It's been I've heard and learned more about Red Hill over the past month than I have in the past, 6 years or so. So thank you for that. When we met last month, I can't recall whether it was you, Ernie, or Erwin that mentioned that we may need between 50 to 75 monitoring wells in order to appropriately track the plume. And I'm just wondering if, given the information that's come to light over the last month or so, whether you folks think we're still looking at 50 to 75 or whether that number has changed at all. And so two-part question, one, whether we're still looking at 50 to 75 and whether that includes the Navy's 21 or that's a 50 to 75 on top of whatever the Navy has, since they don't appear to be sharing info.
Yeah, the 50 to 75 is kind of a swag right now. That's our best guess. We need to have the regulators also determine what is appropriate, the Department of Health and the EPA. But looking at other experiences of other releases that happened in the Pearl Harbor area, they had I think a leak at a above ground storage tank close to Pearl Harbor. And I think they might have drilled about 100 wells, monitor wells. And it was just a much smaller, more compact location than the Red Hill facility, which is spread out over quite a long distance. If you also add the field pipeline. So I would say that's probably the minimum amount needed to basically try to determine how fuel might be moving underground in the aquifer with the groundwater. But the 21 is probably going to be a part of that number, that total number at the end of the day. But they need to do more wells that are not just being drilled on Navy property. They need to go off property into the Halava Valley, South Halava Valley, North Halava Valley areas. And also, with the recent situation, they did have a detection at the Aya Halava Shaft, which as you get off Mauna Loa Freeway, as you enter into, say, Aya Town and Mauna Loa Road, just around that area, they have a drinking water source that they reported to us a few weeks ago. They had a detection of 920 parts per billion pph diesel in that drinking water well. And that's actually across Halava Valley on the same side of it as our Halava Shaft, Aya wells, Halava wells. Later on, they did try to walk back, I think, that it wasn't representative of what was in the drinking water source of that location. But my question, which still remains unanswered, is, then where did it come from? Where do you get that level of contamination in the water that was taken from a sample from some pipes that are part of that source facility? Where did it come from? And also, can I have other test data from that source prior, and also the latest results that you have over time to see if they have found multiple occasions of fuel and contamination in that drinking water source. That's the Navy's drinking water source. That's really important because then it tells us, that that fuel may have migrated across the Halava Valley, which kind of validates our concerns. Also tying that back with the particle track model, model results. Remember we showed that to you, I think it was last month in our presentation, taken from the Navy's 2020 groundwater modeling report. And those particle tracks, particle of fuel, where could it go? Showed it definitely crossing Halava Valley to Halava Shaft, potentially to their own Aya Halava Shaft, also to our Halava well and Aya well, and going as far westward as Kalawa Springs. Granted, the caveat being is that's their submittal to the regulators, EPA and DOH, and the EPA and DOH have not yet provided final comments on that report, which was supposed to be done end of last year. We're still kind of waiting for the EPA and DOH to provide final comments. But that, to me, is just a clear acknowledgement that there is a potential for fuel releases at Red Hill migrating across the valley with that particle track modeling results, which we shared with you folks last month. So that's a cause for concern. Right now, definitely there needs to be much more aggressive investigation into the groundwater issues, the groundwater models, the drilling of monitor wells, the testing of these wells on a regular basis, and sharing that information in a very timely way with the Board of Water Supply, with the EPA, and the Department of Health, because the impacts at the Red Hill facility may not just impact their nearest water source, the Red Hill Shaft, but we are concerned that, well, thank you for bringing this up. This is the particle track model out of the Navy's report from 2021 or 2020, yeah, March 2020. Did that answer your question, Kapoor?
It did. I'm just trying to get a sense of what we're looking at monetarily, and I agree that we need to move forward now. I think that this is a crisis and that we need to get the monitoring wells in the ground as soon as possible so that we can have more information on the depth and the size of the plume and how it's moving, because what we see is our aquifer boundaries are lines on a map. And so these are purely that's not how it is under the ground, and I'm concerned about how the movement of the plume could affect any of our other wells. And so I'm in support of putting in the wells. I think we need to do it as soon as possible, but I am concerned about our ratepayers having to foot the bill. $2 million for one well, if we're looking for 50 to 75 at a minimum, is no small amount. And given all the other kuleana that BWS has, pipeline replacement, so many other things, I just want to make sure that while I agree that we need to act, I also believe that we need to look for reimbursement for this, because this should not be borne on the backs of our ratepayers.
I totally agree with that. This is the responsibility for this types of research and investigation falls back to the owner of the facility, the originator of the fuel leaks. They're the responsible party, and they should be held accountable for that. Definitely, we want to proceed with these immediately, but the vast majority of the wells that need to be drilled should be paid for and done by the Navy. And just this morning, I had a discussion with one of their congressional delegation staff person in Washington. And I pointedly asked that especially our congressional delegation, that they seriously require the Navy to start to fund appropriately in the current budget or the upcoming budget for Congress, for the DOD, to really hold the Navy accountable to adequately fund the efforts needed here for the investigation, for the groundwater modeling, for the cleanup of the contamination. If they find the plume, can they clean it up? They should make sure that the Navy has appropriately funded those activities, so we don't hear an excuse that they have to go back to Congress to ask for money, and it could take another year of delay before they act. So that was my discussion with the congressional staffer this morning. So Kapoor, I totally agree with you. But for now, we got to move, and we can't wait. If we wait for the federal government to come with the funds, we're going to be waiting for probably a few years. But we need to. Time is of the essence for us to move.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, if I may jump in really quickly, the 2 million is a budget that would potentially pay for 2 wells. We have one ready to go right now. Ideally, if we can package and get ready another one, the 2 million could potentially cover 2 wells. So we're looking at the one at Site H being approximately half of that, so $1 million. I know that doesn't make it a lot better when you're still talking about 50 or 70, but I just wanted to let you know that the 2 million we're putting in could potentially do 2 wells for us this year.
Are there any more questions? Thank you.
Ray is talking, but he can't hear.
Ray, can you unmute, Ray? We cannot hear.
Ray, your audio's not coming through. Maybe you can submit your question.
That's not working either.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
That's okay.
You sure?
Yeah, I need to figure it out. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
We
Loud
can
and
hear
clear.
you now.
Oh, okay. I just wonder, because the lead time is really on the design side and it's smaller money, should we not be putting more money into the design and permitting process for 3 or 4 more wells? as opposed to waiting till we, even if they started defueling the tanks now, it's going to be 20 years at least. I think you're going to need the additional wells one way or the other.
That's a very good point. Uh, Perhaps another approach is to drill one well immediately and plan for more wells so that we can actually can start construction in 6 months.
Yes, exactly. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and we can actually put it into the FY23 for construction, but actually use this 2 million part of it to do the design and permitting for that. Okay, I got it, Ray. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good point.
Any other questions?
Hey Ernie, this is Dawn. I was just wondering, is ARPA funds available to help us fund this?
Yeah, Don, that's a good question. I had a short discussion with the managing director the other day about that. One approach is that, I know that the ARPA funds, the guidelines clearly state that water projects are a qualifying category for use of the ARPA funds. But there are certain requirements under the ARPA funds. So one idea was to actually use projects that we are ready to go and can meet the timeline of requirements and the contractual requirements under the ARPA funds. And that'll free up our cash funded CIP dollars for use on the Red Hill situation. So that we can actually, by funding other projects, we can actually try to move some of the Red Hill stuff also quickly and have that flexibility to do it. So some of these projects on we're looking at also using an emergency procurement process, which we use very carefully. But given the circumstances, the time is of the essence, and there is a clear public health risk here. To actually look at that kind of procurement to expedite the projects.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ernie. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna open it up for
Roger has his hand raised, Brian, sorry.
go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And hello, everybody, board members. I think I'm part of the public now, so hopefully that was what you were just about to say, Chair. I want to applaud the efforts of the board and all the BWS staff. Well, first I want to say I support the amendment that you're discussing. But I want to applaud the efforts of all the board members and, of course, all the staff and very professional people for everything that you do to, of course, provide safe, dependable, and affordable drinking water. And I know these are difficult times, and I know that you folks are gonna plow through it and get done what needs to get done. But I did also just want to thank you all for the past year. I really enjoyed working with all of you, and I just wanted to say that and to wish you all the best. We're all depending on you to keep doing all the good stuff. So, thank you.
Oh yeah, Roger, I didn't even know you were on. Otherwise, I would have acknowledged earlier. But it's great to see you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations on your new position, and thank you very much for making the time to be here today, even though you technically didn't have to. And yeah, we're gonna miss you on the board.
It's mutual, so yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, let's see. It is open now for public testimony. Madam Secretary, is there any written testimony?
No written testimony, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Nordstrom, are there any callers The phone lines have been open for public testimony.
Yes,
Is there
Chair.
anyone?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Ramship, is there anyone on the phone to testify?
No, Chair, nobody on the phone to testify at this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Board members, any further questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, I am going to close the public hearing and move into our special meeting. All right, so we've got just a single agenda item for the special meeting for today on the agenda, January 6, 2022. Again, it's a special meeting of the Board of Water Supply. And we have a single item requiring board action related to the public hearing that we just held. This is for the adoption of resolution number 932/2022, which amends the 2021-2022 CIP budget and appropriating funds therefore, and revision of the 2021-2022 CIP budget. And this is amendment number 2. Chair recognizes Ms. Raylin Nakabayashi.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. So I'm just bringing up on screen the letter which explains Resolution 932/2022. We are recommending the adoption of the attached resolution, which does maintain the total bottom line appropriation of $179,976,000. However, it increases the appropriation in the research and development category of the budget, while decreasing the appropriation in the renewal and replacement category of the budget. So it will provide $2 million for additional costs associated with the installation of 2 groundwater monitoring wells in Halawa Valley, near the Red Hill underground fuel storage tank facility. And as we've been discussing, in December 10th, the DOH confirmed, sorry, my screen's blinking. Okay, sorry. Confirmed that water samples taken from Red Hill Shaft were contaminated with high levels of gasoline and diesel rage hydrocarbons, far exceeding the DOH's environmental action level. And the contaminants in Red Hill Shaft do pose a serious threat to public health. And the Navy's Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility is anticipated to be the source of the contamination and is within or under a mile away from our Halawa Shaft. And the contaminants and contaminated groundwater from the Navy's Red Hill Shaft have the potential to migrate across the valley and breach our Halawa Shaft. So this project actually allows us to detect those contaminants in groundwater as they move as they potentially move across the valley and alert us so that we can take appropriate action. So the other part of this removes funding for new service lateral installations at various locations. And this will be refunded in a future fiscal year should the need arise for the service lateral installations to be contracted this way. So the present appropriation, of course, for this project, Halawa Valley groundwater monitoring wells, is 0. Proposed appropriation will be $2 million. And then there is an appropriation in the CIP budget for that new service lateral installations. Present appropriation is $2 million, split across construction and design. The proposal for those 2 appropriations is 0. There was one prior budget amendment that just modified an existing appropriation and moved the funding into contract adjustments account, thereby still maintaining the total and still maintaining within the project defined project categories. This is the second amendment but this had to come before the board because this doesn't, while it maintains the bottom line total, it does not maintain the projects you had already approved and appropriated funds for. This creates a project that was not a part of our May presentation and the adoption by the board. So amendment number 2 is here before you today to create the Halawa Valley project line so that we may move forward. So the full resolution is, I think, within your board pack for your review. But essentially, it just appropriates the same amount of money in the same funding codes, because the project being removed was operating funded or our rate revenue cash funded, and the project being proposed is also operating or rate revenue cash funded. So even the types of funding are the same for the same total, but the CIP, the Capital Improvement Program, pages will be amended to reflect the new project. And the rest of the reso is the same. Happy to answer any other question or any questions if there are any.
Members, any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on what Ray mentioned about the P&E. Well, first of all, I'm glad we're doing 2 wells. I think the original, when we first discussed it at last board meeting, was only 1 well, but I'm glad that's 2. Anyway, I'd like to follow up on the comment Ray made about future wells that we may probably gonna guarantee we're gonna need. To plan for those, would we have that at the next, would the appropriation for P&E would be on the next budget? Or would it be inappropriate to increase what you're asking for here to include a couple more P&Es?
I think once we can put the project in there, then we may have flexibility to add more funds from the contract adjustment account. But I think what Ray is suggesting is maybe do 1 well, but actually do the design and permitting for multiple other wells.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
meant. I mean, would it be,
And,
would
and,
that be in our next budget?
Potentially that could be. What you'll see, I'll just give you kind of a precursor for the next budget is potentially maybe more monitor wells, especially if the Navy and the regulators are not moving forward aggressively to do the investigation of the releases. The other thing is that you're going to see wells, exploratory wells, that are actually wells to look for new well stations that can replace the stations or capacity that make up the capacity that we kind of right now have temporary loss, but perhaps even for the longer term. So I think
Okay.
Ray's suggestion is well taken, and I really, should the board approve this, we'll take a hard look at that, because it may make sense actually now, rather than waiting for the regulators and the Navy to lay out where the well should be. Maybe we should already start to identify them and pursue the permitting and landowner approvals.
Yeah, because Ernie, with the speed with which what happened to the military happened, I just, pardon my French, but I just don't want us to be caught with our pants down in terms of having to, do these lag time in doing the design work. Whereas if we do it ahead of time, if we need to punch a couple of holes just to monitor, we can do that without too much delay. That's all my comment. I was just curious.
There's value in doing planning and doing that advanced work. So when we want to move, we are ready to move, and we can move on multiple locations at the same time.
Right. Okay. Well, look forward to that anyway.
Thank you.
Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Max. Anyone else? Okay.
Do you recall for the question, Mr. Chair?
I am. Hearing no further discussion, may I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, so moved.
Okay, is there a second? Well, let me read the motion first. It's to approve resolution number 932/2022. This is the resolution adopting the amended CIP program budget for fiscal year 2022 and appropriating funds therefore. I will dispense reading the entire resolution into the record. Instead, Ms. Nakabayashi has done able job of breaking it down, and it will be submitted for the record as written, as it appears in the record. Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, so moved.
Thank you. Moved by Member Sword,
Second, this is Ray.
seconded by Member Soon. Is there any further discussion?
I just have a comment, Chair, please.
Yes.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm very supportive of this. I share the concerns that have been articulated by my colleagues here, especially Board Member Soon and Board Member, actually everybody that's spoken today. And so I just want to note that while I will be voting to approve to the degree that as the situation evolves, Ernie, if you and Erwin and the staff feel like there's more that needs to be done and funds can be moved, I'm happy to reconsider additional action if that proves necessary. So I'm happy to look at this on an incremental basis. I just wanted to note that for the record now. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Mahalo. Thank you, Vice Chair Sproul. Anyone else? Right, Madam Secretary, roll call vote, please.
Vice Chair Kapua-Sproul,
Aye.
Board Member Ray Soon,
Aye.
Board Member Max Sword,
Aye.
Board Member Nalehu Anthony,
Aye.
Board Member Don Shuzek,
Aye.
Chair Brian Natalia.
Aye.
Chair motion passes with 6 ayes.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Please note for the record, passage by unanimous vote, resolution number 932, 2022. There being no further business on the agenda and before this board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, so moved.
Thank you.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Nalehu. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed to adjourning the meeting say nay. Okay, hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.